He is the greatest commentator in combat sports, period. We flew him all the way from Boca Raton, Florida. It's Jon Anik on today's Food Truck Diaries, and I'm feeding him bagels. Let's go. Mr. Jon Anik, long time coming, brother.
So great to be out here. We've been planning this for a couple years. Finally in the belly of the beast in Calabasas. Good to be with you, man.
Good to see you, man. You're looking pretty fly.
Well, thank you, buddy. I dressed up for you. Black is pretty slimming, so I figured I would wear black head to toe. We got the one more sleep on the Mark Russell bomber jacket.
Oh, wow.
And,
you got your own jacket going?
We filed for the trademark. Doesn't look like we're going to get it, though.
It's tough to get. That's like one more sleep. That's like LeBron trying to trademark Taco Friday.
Right.
Remember that? When he was trying to do that? Everyone's like, I don't think so, dude. And you also got the dope kicks on, the Paul Rodriguez.
Well, we knew we had to bring
P-rods.
We had to bring it with the kicks if we were going to show up here. So
I wish I knew you were going to rock those. I wore my lower Rodriguez dunks. Yeah. Those are fire, my man.
I don't think I'm like hip enough to be wearing these shoes, but I'm almost 45 years old. I'm just gonna fucking fake it.
You might. Besides, I mean, I feel like Sugar Sean O'Malley might have dressed better than me on this show, but you're right up there.
Well,
you're top three,
well,
dude.
Thank you, man.
You're top three. We've been trying to get you on the show for a hot second. You're the busiest man in mixed martial arts. Hold on. You're the busiest man in combat sports. I don't think people realize your schedule. Like, I know a little bit how the sausage is made in the UFC. And when I hear they're going to Perth or wherever, Abu Dhabi, and you're on the marquee and you got to do the commentating, I'm like, I always think, man, poor Jon Anik, man.
Well, I mean, it's certainly a labor of love, but it's a fucking lot. Like, the last time I did a major college football game was 2015. And it's, dude, you blink, it's halftime, you get a 12-minute break, and then you go home. It's like door-to-door 4 hours versus 10 hours.
Good gig.
So I probably do about 25 of the 41 shows a year that we do. But, you know, Mick Maynard and Sean Shelby giving us, 30 fighters doesn't make things easy. Like, I can't even profess to you when I have an 11-fight card, 22 fights versus 15. If you think about those 8 fighters,
it's a lot, man.
It's a lot. But I have a pretty good system right now. It's the devil I know. Like, if I had to all of a sudden go do a full 17-week NFL schedule right now, I don't know that devil. So at least this is the beast that I know. But it's a fucking lot.
But if you could do this beast, I feel like you could do any beast. Like the NFL beast, obviously different animal. You could, I feel like, do that pretty easily. I also think at this point you're irreplaceable. You've become like, there's a few people in the UFC that you just can't replace. It's you, Rogan, clearly Dana White. Like, you just can't. There's 3 guys. There's 3 staples of the sport. You just can't do anything with it.
Well, that means a lot coming from you. I felt like when Burt Watson left and when Stitch Duran left, somebody's always walking through that door. I think Bruce Buffer's probably more irreplaceable than me. But I appreciate you saying that because I feel like I was sort of developed the right way. I worked basically for 5 years on all the small shows. I've been to Brazil 27 times, so I got a real good depth of knowledge for like the bottom half of the roster. And then when they called my number for the title fights in 2017, I was ready. So. Yeah,
so you started, what was it, Fuel back then?
Yeah, Fuel TV and FX. And my first call was January of 2012, and then in 17 I started doing the pay-per-views.
And you started, with the kind of the undercard guys, and by the time you were at the higher level of the main card, all those guys kind of graduated with you. So it's like a perfect
it was cool. Khabib Nurmagomedov made his UFC debut the same night I was on the cans for the first time in Nashville,
Coincidence?
Tennessee.
I don't think so.
Cool.
2 greats.
But I didn't grow up a martial artist. Like, I've taken 8 jiu-jitsu classes in my life, and I fucking hated every minute of it. You know what I mean? So for me, yes, I feel like I could take a bong hit, drink a 6-pack, and call a football game. Whereas with this, it's a different challenge for me. Now, I feel like I'm much more of a mixed martial arts head and expert now than I was in 2011. But
100%.
Football, baseball, basketball, those are the sports that come easiest to me for sure.
I mean, especially growing up in Massachusetts. I mean, being a Patriots fan, obviously Red Sox fan, you got Bruins, Celtics. Yeah. So it's like sports run deep there. But especially when you were coming up, because you're how old?
44.
Yeah, so, I mean, UFC, MMA wasn't even a thing.
Yeah.
So it's like, I think most people are at that level. No one grew up being like, yeah, UFC is my thing. Kids now, but at our age, there's anybody who tells you that's full of shit.
Right. I remember watching UFC 1 in 1993, and then I didn't watch again until UFC 50 in like 2004. Yeah. We launched MMA Live in 2008. But for me, the turning point really I was hosting a boxing show, and in 2007, Gary Shaw, who started Elite XC, the longtime boxing promoter, he invited all this boxing media to come to Tunica, Mississippi to cover that first Elite XC show, Henzo Gracie and Frank Shamrock in the main event. And at that time in my life, I'm like defending boxing against this MMA avalanche, like didn't like the grappling, didn't like the wrestling.
Hilarious.
And then I watched this MMA show in Tunica, Mississippi, and I was like, with respect to the NFL, this might be the greatest sport in the world, you know? So my gears started to churn that night in Tunica, Mississippi, and I don't really like watching boxing anymore. All they do is fucking hold all the time.
Unless it's like a Gervonta Davis, like unless it's a really big fighter who you know is going to bring it. Boxing stuff, like I always say this when it comes to boxing, UFC, and there's a reason why UFC, mixed martial arts in general, but really UFC surpass boxing is if I sit my 6-year-old down and I have him watch boxing. Let's say it's a Floyd Mayweather fight, one of the greatest to ever do it, maybe the greatest. I have him watch 12 rounds of Floyd, or I have him watch a 5-round main event in the UFC.
Yeah.
Which one do you think that youngster's going to gravitate towards?
Yeah.
So that's boxing's issue right now. They need to figure it out.
No, you're right. I remember back in the day, I was like, I got to have my family members come see Floyd Mayweather in his prime. And so I flew everybody out to watch Floyd Mayweather
What fight?
Sugar Shane Mosley.
Oh, yeah,
and, you know, he got off to a bad start, so that was
They
compelling.
got rocked.
And then he dusted Shane over the final 9 rounds, and I felt like my party just felt sort of underwhelmed by the whole experience, juxtaposed against now, when my family and friends go to a UFC pay-per-view. I mean,
Oh, they're probably chomping at the bit for
nuts,
tickets.
you know, so.
You're also one of the guys, you know, you're one of the OGs now. And we talk about, you know, just getting into it, but when you were first starting, but you're one of the OGs now because you were at ESPN bringing MMA to ESPN before the UFC had this huge deal. Like you and Kenny, was it MMA Live?
Yeah.
Like you and Kenny Florian had the show on there. I remember watching it.
Yeah.
And you guys were kind of like the ride or dies for the hardcores on ESPN. Because I was at ESPN way before the UFC was there, even when they were on Fox, and I'd be like the guy breaking down like Kane, Verdum, and all that stuff. And you'd walk around, and you were like this pride, like they were like, "What?
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
You're here. You're a cockfighter." It's like,
Oh,
whoa,
dude.
easy.
No, you set
So
that up
selling
beautifully.
it is a nightmare.
But, you know, I remember you were like my favorite fighter in 2008 because I was a football fan and you were like the most accomplished football player to ever sort of cross into mixed martial arts at the time. But yeah, man, we had to claw for MMA, right? Like redheaded stepchild doesn't even begin to describe it.
man.
Like Stuart Scott was certainly helpful. And candidly, I always thought he should have been the guy hosting MMA Live and not me. And had he been the guy who was hosting that show, I think that might have expedited our progress internally in Bristol. It took us forever to get to ESPN2, and even then, you know, we couldn't show a lot of blood and things like that. But I gotta say, man, like when I left ESPN in 2011, there were a lot of people in my life, in my inner circle, who said, you spent all this time trying to get to Bristol, you're finally at ESPN, and now you're gonna go do the cage fighting thing. And it looked like the UFC was gonna end up on G4, right?
Yeah.
I didn't even care. Like, I felt like that was the wagon to hitch to. I felt like the sport was gonna explode. Wasn't getting football opportunity. They give me like a game a season. You're not gonna get any better calling one college football game a season. So now, 11 years later, like I feel like I hitched to the right wagon. But I don't know how things would have developed if I had tried to sort of stay on a more traditional ESPN sportscaster path.
Oh, I think you made the right choice. I mean, you know, you could be, you know, there's a lot of big time football analysts out there and commentators and stuff like that, and guys who are faces of the sport as far as the, you know, the booth goes. There's so many of them, but there's only one Jon Anik. Like, I'd rather be the guy of this huge sport than just one of the guys than the other one. Now, I don't know how compensation works. It might be better be the NFL guy and you're 15th on the roster as far as calling plays, or be the number one guy in the UFC. I don't know. I'm not getting in your business there. But what I do find, and tell me if I'm just off on this, there's a lot of journalists who they failed at other sports, and then because the UFC was new, they were able to step their foot into it. There's also a lot of commentators and play-by-play guys who, for whatever reason, they just couldn't get their foot into the door with the NFL, NBA, MLB. So they're like, I'll settle for the UFC. Is there any resentment there with you? Because now that you're the guy in the UFC, where you look at the NFL or what other NBA, and you're like, told you, man.
Well, I look at some of the people I came up with at ESPN, like Molly Karam, who's hosting First Take, Cassidy Hubbard, who is their number one
Molly
NBA sideline reporter,
Yeah.
right? So I do believe that I would have realized some success and maybe would be calling high-level football games right now. So I think there's always going to be that football tug. But yes, you're right. Like, being the lead voice of a sport is something that I never thought would materialize for me. juxtaposed against being one of like 25 NFL announcers
Yes.
who get a game or 2 or 7 or 17 a season. So yeah, I feel like I made the right decision. And obviously when I made my first call in MMA in 09, I did Bellator season 1 in 2009. I was fucking freaking out. Like, I'm walking to the octagon with Bjorn Rebney. I'm like, dude, you got the wrong guy, man. Like, I don't know what I'm doing. But once the
I don't know what I'm doing either.
But once the event started, you just sort of play to your strengths, you know? It's like, I don't know what a Peruvian necktie is at the time, but, you know, I feel like I have a pretty good feel for the broadcast and when to shut the fuck up and when to talk, when to let the action breathe.
That's your gift.
And I have to say, like, when I did Bellator season 1, there's nothing like doing live events. What I don't like is doing the studio stuff. Like, I thought I wanted to be a Sports Center anchor. Fuck that, bro. It's like, all right, top of the 5th inning, Athletics and Royals. You want to do that every night? You're a fucking highlight machine.
Though, bro. That sounded good.
But I got to experience that a little bit, and I don't want to do that every night. Like, all right, we got A's and Royals highlights, top 5.
And you got to get your jokes in while you can. Like, whoa, doozy there.
Exactly.
You know, over his head.
I had a few liners there when I would do highlights at ESPN.com. Like, I would release the Kraken and see a doctor and get rid of it for home runs.
I was so impressed when I worked at ESPN is there wasn't much prep. Like, those guys, they don't realize how good those guys are at their job. Like, with me, they're like, okay, you can go to makeup. Like, you got 20 minutes. I'm like, cool, but are we going to go over? Like, no, it's Verdum, Kane, and you know the fight, right? I'm like, yeah, I know. They're like, so you're good. You're going to have this spot, and then, you know, the host will be there. I'm like, okay, here we go. And then I watch other guys get ready, and I'm like, holy, they're so good. They're such outliers. I'm like, oh, that's why you guys have this job.
Right.
Like, there's not much prep. They're just boom.
You are right. And ESPN, at least in terms of their methodology, they are much more like fly by the seat of their pants on live TV, whereas Fox is just much more, I think, trying to set the table for what's going to happen. So
100%.
You absolutely hit on a truth there. And for me, I think it was good to cut my teeth at ESPN. Like a lot of my broadcast partners, their first indoctrination into television was at Fox. That is a talent network, right? That network caters to talent. Like for me at ESPN, I was putting my suit on in a toilet stall, painting my own face until we got MMA Live to ESPN2. And I think it was valuable for me to grow up in that news environment so that when I got to Fox, I was like, oh, this is kind of nice.
Yeah, I got this. Well, I mean, this could be a 4-hour freaking food truck. Let me feed you. We have some Yeasty Boys bagels. Now, I know you're not an LA guy, but LA food trucks are fantastic. My head producer, Casey, swears by it, so if it's bad, blame him. So let me feed you some. Are you on any weird restrictions diet-wise?
Years old. No.
I'm breaking my carnivore diet for you.
Yes.
And it's rare I do it for guests, but
right.
I'm doing it for you, man.
Thank you.
It's been a long time coming. Let me feed you some Yeasty Boy bagels.
Let's see.
Let's do it. Let's take a little break from chatting with one of my favorites on this episode of Food Truck Diaries with my boy, Jon Anik, because listen, it's a new year, it's here, and you're making big changes. Chances are you could use some sweet everyday earbuds from my friends at Raycon. Raycon's everyday earbuds look, feel, and sound better than ever. They have the optimized gel tips with the perfect in-ear fit. Look at these ears. I have tortellinis for ears for all those years of jiu-jitsu, and I can't just go with any earbud. I need the perfect fit, and that's why I swear by Raycon. It's the only freaking kind of little earbuds that I trust. They will not budge. Trust me. I use it when I'm riding my bike, working out at the gym. Raycon gives you 8 hours of playtime, a 32-hour battery life. Raycons are priced just right. You get quality audio at half the price of other premium audio brands. It's no wonder Raycon's everyday earbuds have over 50,000 five-star reviews. I'm telling you, these are the best earbuds you've ever put in your little hairy ears. All right, they have noise isolation, they have awareness mode, but my favorite is the way it fits in your ear. It's fantastic. I use it all the time, riding bikes, at the gym, on planes. The only earbuds I use are Raycon. All right, so go buy Raycon. Go to buy Raycon, that's BUY, raycon.com/shop today and get 15% off your Raycon order. That's buyraycon.com/shop to score 15% off Raycon earbuds. That's buyraycon.com/shop. Now let's get back to my friend Jon Anik. Appreciate you doing this, my man. I haven't had a good bagel in a hot second. What do you recommend? What's the go-tos for people?
The go-tos are most popular, top no particular order, of course.
Sure.
Deluxe, Deluxe, and the Chetty Wap.
How good is this? I'm not going to fit in my suit in Brazil, but
I know, I'm
it's all
sorry,
right.
man.
No, it's good. I feel like I should bang a Birdman because the same guy who did my 209 tattoo did all of fucking Birdman's tattoos. You know, the guy in the
that's
NBA?
Chris Anderson?
Yeah.
That's my boy.
Yeah, he has great ink.
He's such a good dude.
I'm going to do a Chetty Wap, though, if you don't mind.
Yeah.
Because
that makes
I
sense.
just want to get fat as fuck right now.
Yeah, and we're trying to turn you into a thick boy, dude.
Let's do it.
Thick's in the heart.
Ha!
That's not a good slogan, is it? It's not good. It's not good these days. I'll do the game over.
A little jalapeno smear in your life.
Yeah, man, spice it up. I think that does it. Do you wanna make it heavy? You want a hash brown? Or
Oh, you can double fry it, adding a hash brown to make it heavy. I'm gonna hold off on making it heavy.
Yeah, me too. I don't want
Thank
to
you,
shit
though.
my pants. Yeah, I'll just do the game over.
The bagel and cream cheese, too, just for fun.
Bagel and cream cheese? Yeah, I'll do the regular bagel and cream cheese as well. You have the cheddar jalapeno? Let's do that. Cheddar on cheddar, man.
That's good, man. Make it happen. I appreciate you deviating from the keto carnivore.
Oh, I got to be careful, man. I'll blow up.
Yeah.
I got to be very careful.
I like cut weight like when I'm on TV. Like I just had 31 days where I wasn't on camera. I probably put on 10 pounds and like cut them off. You know?
Yeah, when I know I'm going on tour, I got to go back. So for the holidays, I let loose.
Yeah.
I'll get to 275 with this.
Really?
Oh, dude,
Yeah.
it's not fun.
My suits are just tight. Like the way tailors, my great tailor Mark Russ, but the way these guys want to tailor suits in 2023. They want the pants up to fucking here.
Yeah.
You know, and it almost like the jacket goes
You
like
look
on
good,
top
though.
of you. But the suits are tight, so I gotta be like, if I'm a pound over 55, I can't
You
fucking
freak
button
out?
pants, you know?
Well, Rogan, too. Like, you're next to Rogan.
Yeah.
I think he's had a carb in like 7 years.
Right.
So you're dealing with that maniac
Yeah,
as
of
well.
course.
Then you got DC, although DC's a thick boy.
I look skinny next to DC.
Yeah,
I look
he's
skinny
good.
next
It's
to
good.
DC.
And I think, are you in the middle or you're on the outside?
I'm on the
usually?
end.
Yeah,
Yeah,
you're always,
so,
it goes,
yeah.
you, Rogan in the middle, then DC on the
Yep.
outside? Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, so it's interesting though. No, I mean I eat probably worse at home. On the road I eat cleaner, whereas a lot of people that I work with, you know, they eat super clean at
Yeah, I'm
home, and then when
opposite.
they come on the road, they just
It's because I'll go to Tampa January 20th, 21st. So everyone's like, oh, you gotta try this restaurant, you gotta do
Yeah.
this. I'm like, all right, let's do it. If you're in New York, the pizza, you know, you get Princess Pizza.
Yeah. But see, I don't eat fucking baked goods on the road. But like if I'm home, like we have things that my kid, like I got blueberry muffins in the
Oh, yeah.
house.
If you
I
have
no
kids,
self-control.
me neither.
So
Well, let me feed you these bagels, man. We'll continue
I'm
this,
excited.
brother. Let's do it.
Chetty Wap.
Came in as an underdog, but now I'm on my way. Stayed up every single night and hustled every day. I've been going so hard, now I'm on my way. Like, oh my God.
All right, my man, some Beastie Boys.
Let's go.
That's a play on Beastie Boys, I assume.
This is taking me back to my childhood, you know. A lot of good bagels in the Northeast. Oh, look at this, man.
You have some. Oh, that's just the straight. Wow, even the cream cheese one looks pretty fire. Casey sweared by him. He's a New Jersey boy, so he knows. Connecticut. Oh, I thought you were Jersey. Oh, I think different of you now.
Yeah, he's got that 203 cell phone.
Refuse to
That's
change it. Nice bagel?
Bro, I mean,
I couldn't fly you all the way out of here before you head to Brazil or where the hell you're going, or Ukraine. I don't know
this
where
is
you're going.
banging. Like, I try not to talk in superlatives when I eat and say things like this is the best breakfast sandwich I've ever had, but bro, there's something about this bagel, man.
Is it nice? I'm pretty excited for it.
Something about this bagel.
Is there, back home in Boston, you got some go-tos in Massachusetts?
Yeah, I haven't been
So
there
much
in a while.
good food. You haven't gone back in a while.
Well,
You big time your family back home?
most of them are gone.
Okay, sorry about that.
I did take my kids to Fenway Park last summer. Top of the first inning, 5-0 Blue Jays. I turned to my daughter, I'm like, this one's over. She's like, what do you mean? I'm like, 5-0, top of the first inning. But we stayed 7 innings and,
Was it over?
oh yeah, they didn't come
Yeah,
back. They lost like
yeah.
28-5 or something.
Yeah,
you
it's
know?
the pros, yeah.
But no, most of my family has left Boston, but I try to take my kids back to sort of experience the city. My kids love New York. And as a
Traitors.
Boston guy,
Traitors.
exactly. So when we first moved to South Florida, my daughters would like shove the Miami Dolphins in my face, right? Because I'm a Patriots fan, asking for Dolphins gear, but now they're on the right side.
Asking for Dolphins gear?
Yeah. It's like,
I mean, what
fucking
jersey are
no,
you getting?
You know? Yeah, right.
Yeah.
No, I think...
Here's a Tua jersey.
right.
They're on sale.
For a while, like Tannehill jerseys were everywhere.
Oh,
I'm
that's
like,
right.
But yeah. But no, I mean, I don't miss the cold, but it is weird, like raising kids in South Florida. Like, I never thought I would be in Florida. But I like the sun.
Is that all they know? Like, were they born in Florida? Or were they born somewhere else and you moved to Florida?
So my first daughter, actually, 5 people in my immediate family, all born in different states. New York, Massachusetts, Connecticut, Nevada, Florida. Oh, wow. So my first daughter was born in New Haven, Connecticut when I was at ESPN. Then we moved to Vegas, had my second daughter in Vegas. That's her claim to fame because she's fucking crazy. And my son was born in Florida. So,
nice.
Yeah, so, but, yeah, I mean, I liked Vegas. My wife didn't like Vegas. She just didn't want to raise the girls in Vegas, which I certainly understand.
It's an acquired taste. There's certain good things about Vegas. Same with Florida. My thing, people are like, oh, you align more with Florida, the taxes and, they didn't lock down. I'm like, yeah, sure. For what I do, like Miami, there's some energy there, but there's just no the comedy scene stuff. But there's not a ton of energy. Like here, even though I'm in Calabasas, there's a hustle here. Like you touch on LA, touch on New York, Boston for that matter. There's that hustle energy, which I like. There's that competitive energy.
There's no pull for you to go back to Denver, though?
None. Zero. I go back there and I feel like I'm in a country western.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm just like, oh, it's slow here, man.
Yeah. So I mean, I feel that a little bit. I kind of like that. I live in like West Boca Raton, not like in the belly of the beast we're like removed, because I'm a little bit of a homebody.
Me too. I'm super homebody. Yeah. Boca Raton, they call it Heaven's Wedding Room. Right? There's a lot of older people there. Yeah. My manager, Lex, is down there.
Yeah, and obviously a lot of pro fighters down there. But yeah, when I first moved down there and you go to like CVS and it takes you 20 minutes to get a pack of gum because everyone in line is 78 years old, that was an adjustment for me. Yeah. And it can be depressing. Like my wife was like, everyone's fucking dying down there, so, but it's gotten younger, and obviously a lot of New Yorkers. I mean, that's, I guess, my biggest complaint is that I feel like I'm in New York South, and as a Boston guy, I can't even root for Chris Weidman. Like we don't root for New Yorkers. So when my daughters start putting New York City over, it's like,
how
fucking
dare
no, it's dirty. No.
Well, let's get into some fighting here, my man.
Yeah.
I feel like I can't remember, and it might be my perspective on it, but I feel like it's a lot of people's perspectives. I can't imagine in any sport a rougher start to 2023. It's been the roughest time to be an MMA fan. Right now, like there's so many deaths. You have the Dana situation, so it's just right now, like I feel like the sport is like, it's in a tough spot. Of course we're gonna get out of it. I just think UFC needs to announce like a big, like if they announce John Jones Francis, some huge mega fight, we're all going to forget about all this darkness and just get back to business. So they need to start rolling out the big fight announcements, which I think is going to happen.
I think you're right. I think certainly if we could somehow announce Kamaru Usman and Leon Edwards, right? That event has already been announced for March 18th, but we don't have confirmation that Kamaru is going to be a part of it. But you're right. I think a John Jones, Francis Ngannou announcement would be useful. I think just having our pay-per-view in Rio here in short order is going to help things. But yeah, man, Stephan Bonner was a good friend of mine, and certainly we were closer 10 years ago than we were at the time of his passing. But, he was at my wedding. Like, he was a really devoted friend. And when I moved to Vegas, his family really sort of brought us in. They were the only
he was a
friends
Vegas
we
guy
had.
at the time, right? Yeah.
But it just saddened me to such an extent getting that text message on Christmas Eve because, I feel like for a lot of guys, they transition out of fighting and there are mental, physical, and emotional challenges. And I just think for him, he had a lot of all of those and just couldn't necessarily turn that corner. And then when it looked like maybe he was going to turn the corner, started a podcast, had some momentum, passes away at work.
Yeah, he was just a good guy. And then you got, Angela Lee's sister passed away. And then, Rumble Johnson not too long ago, which was a tough one. So it's just like all just hit.
Baroni, right?
Phil Baroni thing is just like, what? So it's like, with the Baroni stuff, the Dana stuff, I feel like the sport finally got to the main stage and we're viewed upon from the public like a NFL, MLB, or NBA. And then with that stuff, it sets us back.
Yeah. And as Dana said yesterday to the media, the people that might lose respect for him are people that he respects a great deal, fighters and his colleagues and even the MMA media. He's close with a lot of those people, but it's sort of just walking back into your reality. There was one time on a UFC broadcast, we had 2 fighters competing, Andre Ewell and Chris Gutierrez, and the why for both of those guys is their sons that they aren't allowed to see, right? Andre Ewell has a son who's 13 who he can't see, and Chris Gutierrez's son is younger and he can't see him. And I sort of mistakenly, I wish I could take it back, but I tied their 2 stories together on live TV, and I mentioned that they both had been through like custody battles with their kid. And I'm sort of trying in the middle of a round to explain that this is this is why these guys fight. They're both heavy-hearted, right? And not a day of my life goes by where some UFC fan doesn't reach out to me on Twitter or Instagram and says something about the custody battle thing. Well,
that's part of the narrative. Like, to me, that's what makes MMA great. It's like boxing it for the longest. When you think about those, the countdown stuff like that, like. You'd be a random Mexican dude. I had no clue who he was.
Yeah.
And you see his backstory. They show him, in somewhere in Juarez, Mexico, and you see his family, and he's fighting for his kid or whatever. And I'm like, oh, I'm sold on the guy.
Right.
With MMA, there's so many great stories, and you do such a good job telling that story. Unfortunately, that one might be, a little darker story, but that's still their story.
Well, right, and that was what my intention was. I mean, my intentions were clear and they were good.
Did
right?
it come off?
The phraseology wasn't good, right? The term custody battle, and I'm glad on a platform like this to be able to discuss this a little bit. The term custody battle obviously rings true with a lot of people, and there are a lot of negative connotations because it's a battle between former spouses in a lot of situations. But ultimately, Chris Gutierrez and Andre Ewell had both talked about this publicly. They had talked about it with us, right? And
it's not like you broke news.
And when Chris Gutierrez wins the fight, I felt a little bit vindicated because he's crying in the octagon with Joe Rogan. And had I not mentioned it, then why is he crying?
Correct.
He's crying because he's being kept from his son. So I just felt like I had good intentions, but I didn't put it particularly well. But I bring it up in the context of what Dana White is dealing with, or not even what he's dealing with, he put it upon himself, but it's like walking back into your new life, honestly, Like when I got off the air that night and I saw my mentions, thousands, right? I've never had more mentions getting off the air, people calling for my job, custody battle, this,
Something triggered him.
But when Ronda Rousey lost to Holly Holm, welcome to your fucking new life. And even though Kamaru Usman and Israel Adesanya have handled those circumstances maybe better than Ronda did, like for Kamaru, like he's handled it beautifully. But dude, welcome to your new life.
So did Izzy. Let's take another little break chatting with my boy Jon Anik on this week's Food Truck Diaries because it's a new year. And guess what? My friends at Onnit are here to give you the best step forward to making the best year possible with Onnit's New Year All You. All right, they got everything you need. They're giving you 20% off select supplements and nutrition, 10% off select fitness, 50% off digital items, and also you get Alpha Brain to support your focus. It's the #1 nootropic on the planet, all right? They've sold over 1 million freaking bottles. You get your money back guaranteed. You don't need to send back the product. Keep it. That's how much they trust in Alpha Brain, the #1 nootropic on the planet. For training you can do at home, join the New Year All You program, Onnit 6 Challenge, a 6-week workout and lifestyle program with $36K in prize money up for grabs. The challenge helps you connect with others in Onnit community so you can support each other, achieve your goals, and make bank, bro. That's right. So you get 10% off select fitness, 50% off digital items. All right, that means Alpha Brain. You get all sorts of dope gifts, man. All right, with 20% off, 10% off, 50% off. Streaming fitness. Stay at home, do the streaming fitness. Get kettlebells, steel club maces. You got protein powders, hemp powders. We got everything. Warrior bars. It's Onnit. The one-stop shop to get your year right. It's 2023. Let Onnit help you. It's onnit.com/FTD. That's onnit.com/FTD for Food Truck Diaries. Onnit.com/FTD. Save 10% off the entire website. But right now, for limited time, only through January, again, that's 10% off select fitness, 20% off supplements, 50% off digital items, and then you can sign up for the Onnit 6 Challenge, an all-new year, all-new you. Onnit. Get you some. Onnit.com/FTD. This episode of Food Truck Diaries with Jon Anik is also brought to you by my friends at Happy Hippo, the world's best kratom on the planet. Listen, they just dropped their new little kratom shot here. It's the butterscotch. It tastes delicious. It also gets your brain fired up. It's my limitless pill. Whatever I'm doing, podcasts, stand-up, radio, TV, doesn't matter. Your boy's on Happy Hippo kratom. It's the only kratom that I trust. And if you don't like the high concentrated shots like your boy, they got powder, they got pills, they got gummies, they got anything you need to get that delicious kratom into your body. That's Happy Hippo. Go to happyhippo.com. Promo code is THICC23. That's thick with 3 C's. THICCC 23. And you save 20% off the best kratom on the planet for life. Use that code as many times as you want. Share it with your friends, your family. THICC23. Thick with 3 C's. You get the best kratom on the planet. That's happyhippo.com. Promo code THICC23. For reals. Let's get back to the program. Yeah, I think with Dana it's tough, and I struggle with it because obviously, I get a lot of hate online, stuff like that. So when someone's going through something, I don't care if I don't have any enemies. I don't. Some people might not like me. They're not getting that back. It takes the power from them. So with Dana, people always think we have issues. We don't. That's in the past. He's doing good. I'm doing good. If he called me and was like, hey, Schaub, we need you to cover this, you got it, dude.
Yeah.
Hey, Schaub, his kicks were fly. I wear 13. Cool, you can have them.
Yeah.
I don't care.
Right.
I have no animosity towards the guy. So when this stuff came, a lot of people in my mentions, emails, I can't wait to see your take on this. Finally can light this guy up. I'm like, oh, you haven't been paying attention. I don't dogpile. I don't see anybody get canceled. He has a wife and kids, clearly has a wife and kids. It's not what I do. What I do know is people make mistakes. I know that for a fact. I have friends who've made some mistakes, and I believe in a comeback story. I also don't think one situation at a Senior Frogs in Cancun or wherever he was at defines Dana White, but there has to be some sort of repercussions there. 100%, you can't put your hands on your women, even if they hit you first. I don't care. But I didn't know how to kind of take it in. I didn't know how to digest. I'm like, oh, that's not good. That's not good. And a part of me is like, I don't want to see, like, people are calling for him to lose his job. I'm like, that's not the answer.
Yeah.
That can't be the answer. Like, and for those of you asking for him to lose his job, I'm not saying you put your hands on women, but you've never made a mistake before.
Yeah.
But I don't vouch for him or defend him. And as he said, don't defend him. There should be some repercussions. I think my biggest takeaway from all of it, and they're going to do what they want with Dana, and I have no control over that. But what I do think, my takeaway was how powerful is Dana White. I don't think, some people are like, oh, if he was a black man, he'd been canceled. It's not a black or white thing, it's a power thing.
Yeah.
I think, he's shows you how powerful he is with, you can tell, Fox and ESPN, they've been mum on it, which I was surprised, especially in this current climate. But it just shows you how powerful he is. It's like, oh, it has nothing to do with me. He doesn't control anything I do.
Yeah.
I was just like, oh, wow, that's intense how powerful that guy is.
Yeah.
I can't imagine. And I haven't gotten Rogan's take on it, but you got to be careful with Rogan too, right? He comes from a family of, he's seen domestic violence, his mom being punched in the face, so I'm sure he feels a certain type of way about it. But you guys are so close to the flame. I'm not. I'm all the way out here. It has to. Well, you have to wake up and just be like, oh damn.
No, it's hard.
It's a lot.
Right?
Like you don't. And I'm not even trying to put you on the spot. You don't have to answer.
No,
you know
it's
me.
okay.
Like we're boys. I love the fuck out of you. So it's like I wasn't even gonna bring it up. It's just it's an elephant in the room, kind of.
No, and it's a tricky thing, right?
Yeah,
As
I don't
the
know.
lead play-by-play voice for the
rambling
UFC,
there.
it's like I don't know what people necessarily want me to do, right? So we thought about on our podcast, maybe we'll read Dana's quotes and then have a quick reaction. Nobody's going to defend a man putting a hand on a woman. In terms of the punishment and the repercussion, I don't think a 60-day suspension solves anything. No. But certainly a philanthropic individual, like people don't understand just how philanthropic Dana White is. Like he doesn't publicize the goodwill he does. So I think for him, trying to affect change in that world, whether it's sitting down with people who have been involved in those situations or making a contribution to women who have dealt with something like this, like, yes, you can affect change in that area. But I do believe that, not unlike for me with the custody battle thing, really a valuable lesson for me to learn. That's something I'm going to be dealing with for the rest of my broadcasting career. Well, I mean, bro, we're 3 years removed. Go to my mentions right now. Like, there's a custody battle mention today.
But that's online. Like the majority of people, and on your Twitter or whatever, they say if you walk down the street, 1 in 10 people on Twitter, they're familiar with it. So that might be the narrative on social media. But when you walk down the street, trust me, dude, I have a good read on this. Most people are like, holy shit, there's Jon Anik, the greatest, commentator in combat sports. No one's like, man, you remember that one time on that undercard he talked about custody? Never. I think that's more of your own thing, and then obviously online, it's the only thing. What are you going to go at Jon Anik for? What are you going to go at him for?
Yeah. Well, I appreciate your support, and you've had my back for 15 years now. And obviously, Rogan's public support certainly helps me.
He called you the greatest commentator in combat sports. Humbling.
Well, play-by-play guy. Obviously, Joe and I have different jobs, and I think that's lost on some people. Yeah. I'm not an analyst, right?
No.
I mean, certainly.
So there's play-by-play, and then there's color, right?
Yeah.
Joe's more of the color.
But obviously, we worked together for the first time in 2012, and now we've been working together regularly for almost 7 years. But to have his approval, like, can you imagine what it's like for my twin brother and my mom to see Joe Rogan go on a podcast and call me, the greatest play-by-play.
Oh, it's
guy
like you being an author and Oprah recommends your book on her book club.
And it's
like you're selling books.
Well, and he said one of these things, not for nothing, like during my contract negotiation, it's like, fuck, man, like, thank you.
Yeah, like, what's up now?
But
you
no,
sent them that for your negotiation?
But, I do have a clause in my contract that they can fire me without cause at any time. And that's sort of unique for sports broadcasters. Like, when I signed an ESPN contract, the whole deal's guaranteed.
Oh, interesting. I didn't know that.
But I'm not fearful of losing my job, but I
Nor should
really do have my head to the pavement, like feeling like I have to earn it every show. Because one thing I think we all know about Dana White is that if I have a few bad shows in a row, like, he won't hesitate to get rid of me. Like, I need to earn that fucking seat. Well,
you think still?
I need to earn that seat.
Yeah.
And
I think you had some leeway now.
well, and certainly having
I'm like, you have some nerve.
Well, certainly having Joe's support, because the thing is, like, we want Joe for the long term, and it just feels bigger and better when he's there.
Correct.
And that's the majority opinion. And for me, there's just such a different dynamic when he is there, and I want to make sure he's happy. So if he's happy and he's enjoying this, like with respect to Mike Goldberg, I feel like Joe Rogan has never had more fun than he is having right now.
And that's the key. Like, it's the three of you. Like, don't get me wrong, Bisping's one of my favorites. Cruz is great. Felder's phenomenal. I want to see Laura Sanko up there with you guys. She's great. But when it's you three, it's something special. It's so special. You got Rogan, right? This legend. You got you, the best to do it. You have DC, first ballot Hall of Famer, like one of the best to ever do it. But the chemistry between you guys, I always relate to the fight campaigns that Rogan started. I do them now because he can't, and that's with his blessing. So with the fight campaign, those were so special because it was friends. So even though Eddie's this jiu-jitsu mastermind, he started 10th Planet, and beat Gracie and this phenomenal, brilliant mind, but he's a huge conspiracy theorist. And then you have Rogan, who's, the guy, right? And then you have me, and then you have Count. It was this perfect, relationship where, man, it just works.
Yeah.
So when it's you, Rogan, and DC, it's like I can sit back and you guys kind of break the fourth wall, where I think the reason why you guys work so well together is people feel like they're watching it with their friends. That's why fight campaigns work. That's why podcasts work.
Yeah.
Because people think they can relate to it. It's not so suit and tie.
Right.
So it's the real shape of the three of you together. Like the three of you should never break up.
Thank you.
You're like the Beatles. You should never break up.
Well, thank you. And those guys deserve a lot of credit, and certainly Daniel for his levity and his comedy. I just think he brings out the best version of Joe. I do feel like Joe is at his best when Daniel is to his right. But no, it means a lot. Obviously there was a time when Dana talked about this dream team, and there were rumors that, Mario Lopez was going to come in, and, here I am, the number 2 guy being elevated to the number 1 guy. And then I got to hear about this dream team, of which, in theory, I'm not a part. I feel like I've distanced myself from that.
What was the dream team? Mario?
I don't know.
Was it Mario Lopez?
I don't know. I don't know what the dream team was. I don't think I was a part of it. But I feel like, humbly, I've distanced myself from that conversation.
Oh, you're the dream team, dude.
With my...
You're Larry Bird, because you're from Boston. You're Larry Bird, Rogan's Jordan, and then DC's Magic Johnson. There's no dream team without the three of them.
Well, thanks. I feel like I've just had to...
Mario Lopez, Isaiah Thomas.
Take
right?
it.
No one likes him,
Yeah.
But you got to put up with him. Right?
I just feel
you
like...
listen to him in the hotel room.
I just feel like I've just... It sounds trite, but like I've stayed true to like what got me to the dance, which is just hard work, preparation, and just sort of tuning out the noise, right?
Yeah.
And Dana and I have never been in a better place than we are right now, but he certainly rode me pretty good when I started, right? He told me that there were going to be a lot of people who just fell off of my support bandwagon, and he was absolutely right about that. He said my haters were going to go through the roof, and initially that's exactly what happened. But he said, we're not hiring you to be Goldie or Joe, we're hiring you to be yourself.
Yes.
But he had heard 2 voices call every UFC fight for 15, 20 years. So then all of a sudden, Ken Flo and I are calling that fight in Nashville, and he's in the back. Like, that's an adjustment for him and MMA fans around the world. And I think now, 11, 12 years in, I feel like he's comfortable.
There's no UFC without Jon Anik.
Well,
you're irreplaceable, man. You know this.
Well, one thing that I've really tried to focus on is like the championship calls and the fight ending calls. I don't have a token phrase that I go to. I'm trying to provide the historical soundtrack for the biggest moments in UFC history, and I want those moments to be unique. I never know what the fuck I'm going to say. Sometimes it comes out better than others,
Well, if it's pre-planned, we could all smell it, right?
Right.
Like it'd be, most people could.
The only time I ever thought about something, Demetrius Johnson was chasing down something, and the word immortality, I felt like I wanted to work that into a call, and I'll never do that again because I felt like it got in my head,
You like delayed, yeah.
But, Jan
that kick was
Blachowicz-
immortality, though.
Right.
Rogan's like, what?
Right. It's like, dude.
Yeah,
like,
come on, man.
What? You know?
You're forcing it.
Right. But when Jan Blachowicz broke through, you know, Poland, your guy, got it done. It's 7 words that I think will withstand the test of time. I don't know what the fuck I was going to say, but sometimes less is more. You know, even saying like 4th round TKO, if you inflect the right way, can be powerful.
Yeah,
So.
and then one more sleep.
Speaking of which, Brazil designs are out. This is a double XL.
Oh, is
I
it
think
really?
this is our best design with the Brazilian flag underneath. I think this is the best
and I
design.
have some Brazilian ties by Brazilian ties. One more
So-
sleep. I had a good sleep in Brazil when Nogueira knocked me out, so this is offensive, but I appreciate the shirt.
There you go.
Oh,
So
that's
that's the
dope,
double
dude.
XL, and then we did bring you the New York City edition in an XL.
That's what
as
we're
well.
talking about. XL's a little tight.
that's
but-
a UFC
that
281.
That one's sick.
But that's a little more subtle, right?
Yeah,
You know?
I dig it though, man.
So
but one more sleep's kind of your thing.
it's funny, it sort of took off organically. As we filed the trademark, we had to go back and find my first usage of it, and it was like a tweet in 2015. It sort of took on a life of its own. There is a Christmas song called One More Sleep. But yeah, it's sort of something I've become associated with, and we're selling the merchandise and having fun with it, but doesn't
love
look
it,
like we're
dude.
going to get the trademark. But yeah, it's kind of a cool thing. And,
Yeah, I love it.
Yeah, so.
Now, as far as looking forward to future fights, is there any fights that you're like, you need to see happen this year? To me, John has to fight. John Jones
Yeah.
has to fight. Before you answer, John Jones has to fight. I would love a Sugar and Aljamain Sterling, but Sterling just came out and said he injured his shoulder.
Right.
So it's probably going to be Cejudo and Sugar, which is a good fight.
Yeah.
You know, I think Volkanovski, Makhachev's a great fight.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think who else. Izzy Pierre rematch.
Yep. Got to think that that's going to happen.
Hamzat, just, hey, quit running from him. Give him fight. He can't get a fight. I don't even see him on Instagram either. It's like, dude, this isn't helping you.
Yeah.
Like, he looks terrifying.
Well, and like, let's take Bilal Muhammad, right? A guy who,
Love him.
and he's not going to turn down Khamzat Chimaev, but there are times where maybe a fighter like Bilal will be approached with a Khamzat fight, and he just has beaten Sean Brady, and then maybe they want him to turn around in 7 weeks,
That's
and
tough.
it's just not realistic. It's one thing to turn down Khamzat Chimaev when you're getting what amounts to a full training camp.
Correct.
It's another thing when the circumstances intervene. So I don't think Bilal turned down Khamzat if he was offered that fight in a full training camp. Like, no fucking way.
I actually think Bilal, as far as stylistically, poses the most issues for him. And
Yeah.
there's not a lot of guys you see issues for Hamzat.
So when we did our year-end wrap-up in 2020, my dream fight was Khamzat Chimaev versus Colby Covington, and now 2 years later, like, that's still my dream matchup, so I would like to see that. But the fight I got to see this year is Valentina Shevchenko against Zhang Weili. It doesn't seem as though Shevchenko and Nunes are going to fight a third time at 35, even though Valentina finally seems to have redeveloped an appetite for that fight. But dude, Zhang Weili is someone who can absolutely
She looks
become a
so
double
good.
champion.
Her grappling looked much better. I'll tell you who is going to give Shevchenko a run for her money by the end of the year is Tatiana Suarez.
That's right.
She's coming back.
That's right.
She's a problem.
And Suarez
She a
has
problem.
even hinted that she wants to go back to strawweight. I'd like to see her stay at flyweight, candidly.
Me too.
You know?
But she can do both.
Yeah.
But I think to chase that Shevchenko, she could get it. And stylistically, if her injuries, if her neck's there,
Yeah.
she's a problem.
That's a great name to inject into the conversation because
They
you
need it.
have. She's going to fight Montana De La Rosa, and if she beats her, she could certainly fight Valentina. It looks like Tyler Santos and Aaron Blanchfield are going to fight. Both of them would be worthy, even though Santos already had her shot. But I don't know, man. Like, I'm not so sure Zhang Weili doesn't beat Valentina Shevchenko. I know she just won the belt for a second time, so maybe there will be a title defense first. But
after seeing Weili, you're like, oh man, she's gotten way better.
oh, no doubt, no doubt.
Her
It's crazy to
grappling, her
look back
transitions,
to.
her jiu-jitsu, you're like, oh, this girl's a problem.
It's crazy to look back to her 2-fight series
Isn't
with
it
Rose
crazy?
Namajunas. You know?
Nuts.
You know, for Conor McGregor too, and I'm changing gears a little bit here, but Conor's going to fight again in the UFC. Like, he is a fighter. He is a mixed
This
martial
year,
artist.
he'll fight this year.
And this is what he wants to do. Like, yeah, there's a monetary component to it, but there's no way for him to scratch the competitive itch that he's trying to scratch anywhere else but the octagon. So
Yeah, the whiskey sales aren't doing it for him. Like, he did that, right? So I think for Conor, I just think his team needs to sit down and go, we know you want to fight Makhachev. We know you want to do this, Charles Oliveira.
Yeah.
No, you've been out too long. The game doesn't work like this. Let's get a win, get the fans back on your side, and then go for that big shot, and then maybe ride off into the sunset. But Tony Ferguson makes a lot of sense. Chandler would be fun for him. The tough fights. But to go straight to the tip of the spear, the Kamaru Usmans or the Charles Oliveira's or the Makhachev. It's like, no, dude,
Yeah.
you've been out too long.
Right.
Don't another loss and it's just game set match.
Yeah, I mean, I'd be surprised to see him back at 55. Obviously, he would only be back at 55 for the undisputed lightweight championship. What about Masvidal? Does that?
Oh, that does it for me.
Yeah.
That does. Oh, that's.
I mean, I think that's
for me.
interesting at welterweight, and maybe there would be more upside to that matchup for Conor than a Ferguson fight.
55 is gonna be tough for him.
Yeah, I think so too.
He's too juicy in a good way. Like he's jacked.
Yeah, but no, I mean, it's interesting because in terms of superstars, like the biggest thing that I am charged with is humanizing our athletes and helping the promotion create stars. And it's always funny to me when people say like, dude, like, yeah, there's never going to be another Conor McGregor, right? Like Paddy Pimblett is a star, but like nobody's going to reach Conor's level. I feel pretty convicted in saying that.
Not
but
in
the
our
notion
lifetime.
that there aren't going to be other stars, right? Like, dude, I remember in 2017 we were having this conversation, and then Israel Adesanya goes on to headline like 25% of our pay-per-views for the next 4 years,
Superstar.
right? And then Paddy Pimblett and Alex Pineda, on and on it goes.
So Sean.
Exactly.
These guys coming out of nowhere.
Right.
Like it's always going to be there. It's always going to be there. You just don't know who it's going to be. I do think, as far as like those big pay-per-view stars, it's just it's a different business model now. The Conor days of those huge pay-per-view superstars are gone. I think now your biggest pay-per-view star is probably Izzy.
Yeah. But like last year was like a good year for the hardcores, right? Like pay-per-views like Charles Oliveira versus Islam Makhachev, right? But like for me, like do I get more excited for Charles Oliveira versus Islam Makhachev or the BMF title fight, right? Like to me, we've had a lot of highly competitive, highly compelling matchups between the best fighters in the world that maybe aren't doing north of 300,000 pay-per-view buys.
And I don't care.
Dude, right. I mean, these are the
I
biggest
do not
best
care.
fights in the world.
Yeah, agree. Now, as far as your boy Kenny Florian, well, we can end on this. As far as your boy Kenny Florian, Jake Paul signed with PFL. When I heard that, Kenny's our boy, I was like, oh, this is good for Kenny. Because PFL, it's a good league.
Yeah.
It's it's in cahoots with ESPN and UFC, so it's a good league. But Jake Paul going there, it's gonna be so beneficial for our boy Kenny.
Yep.
And I'm interested to see who does Jake Paul fight in MMA. Because if I'm his manager, before you answer, if I'm his manager, we go for Nate Diaz. But you box first.
Right.
I do believe he has a chance to beat Nate in boxing.
Yeah.
You're not going to beat Nate in MMA. So I think you do the box match first. Hopefully you win that if you're Team Jake. Then you go to MMA. That could be a little more difficult for you. But then there's the paydays on that trilogy match.
Yeah.
Whichever it's
Right,
box or
right,
MMA depends,
So Renato Moicano came out and said he feels like Jake Paul has a far easier time beating Nate Diaz in a boxing setting than Nate Diaz has beating Jake Paul in an MMA setting. Like when you forecast Nate mopping the floor with Jake Paul, who has some size on him, like how is that going down? Because certainly I think Nate would be a 3-1 favorite over Jake Paul in an MMA setting, but like, dude, there's a huge size discrepancy.
There's
and
size
still,
and power.
I mean,
size,
like
power.
standing guillotine, like you got to get the fight to the floor.
And Nate's not known for his wrestling. Jake has some wrestling background in high school, which I always hate saying high school background.
Right.
But he does have a little more experience when it comes to the wrestling. Yeah, so if Nate couldn't take him down, it could be some issues.
But I don't think it's going to be.
I'd say 3-1.
Jeremy Stevens, Anthony Showtime Pettis, other big names that are under that PFL banner, but too small, right? But I just have to say, man, like I don't know if you saw that whole 6-minute promotional video that Jake Paul put out there. Obviously, for me, like I didn't love the sort of veiled shot at Dana, my boss, at the end. But dude, I thought it was fucking brilliant. I thought it was masterfully produced. He's a great orator and an articulator, putting over the rest of the PFL roster. Like I really thought that in terms of like a directive for fans, like it was fucking perfect. And
he's interesting to see because you talk about hate. Who has more hate than Jake Paul? Like Jake and his brother, a lot of fans, a lot of hate.
Yeah.
Right? It goes hand in hand. If you're doing something well, you can have haters. So those guys have so much hate, and especially when Jake and Logan, for that matter, but really more so Jake, when he came over to the boxing scene, now he's coming to MMA. The MMA and fight scene hated that dude.
Yeah.
But it's crazy for me to see. He's kind of winning people over. Fighter pay. Now he's willing to risk it and fight MMA.
Yeah.
It's hard to hate on the guy. It's like, okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well, damn.
Right. Well, and
50% split on pay-per-view. It's like, this is unheard of.
And we'll see, right, how that all plays out because
That business model is not sustainable.
Right.
I don't
And
think
if
so.
you think about, let's just say Jeremy Stevens versus Jake Paul, right? How does that do on pay-per-view, right? Because ultimately 50% of what, right? Like you still got to get people to actually purchase the pay-per-view.
And I think for Jake, too, coming over to PFL, a lot of people, aren't alluding to this, but a big problem for Jake on his fights that were on Showtime and wherever else he was fighting, a lot of that was pirated. Like a lot of his fan base, that younger fan base, they're not paying $50, $60, whatever.
Right.
They're illegally streaming that thing. So his numbers, that might show whatever, 500,000, 600,000. Really, it's like 1.5, probably 2 million, because that young fan base is stealing it.
Yeah, no,
you
you're
come
right.
over to ESPN, good luck stealing that bad boy.
But I gotta
there's- you
say-
can, don't get me wrong, but the majority of those youngsters aren't going to be able to steal it.
No,
So
you're
that's
right.
another benefit for him, coming over to this kind of empire. You're not going to be able to steal it as much.
No, I think it's important that you got that out there. I will say, though, and I'm talking to someone right now who's built a fucking empire for himself in Southern California, and a lot of it's rooted in hard work, right? Obviously, you have a lot of natural talent, comedic ability, and timing, and all that shit, right? But Jake Paul's a fucking worker. Like, why does he have my ultimate respect? Like, you don't think there are 100 or so fighters on our roster that Jake Paul's working harder than? Like, this dude works. So to me, unless I'm missing something, like my respect for him initially was just rooted in the fact that he worked.
That's where I came from. And people, when I co-signed him and Logan, who I know both of them pretty well, Logan used to live very close to me, so me and him became friends. But originally, I'm too old. I've never seen any of their YouTube videos. I think I saw the Logan Paul in the forest one we got in trouble for. I was like, this is insane. I can't believe people watch this, but they do.
Yeah.
So I wasn't a fan of like his work in that sense. But then when I started coming around, I'm like, oh, these guys, they know exactly what they're doing. Not only are they business savvy, but they're working their ass off. And then when I went to watch Jake work out, I'm like, oh, this dude is put in work. And then when you think about it, him and his brother are so massive as far as their fan base, they could play checkers and make millions of dollars. They decided to do boxing and MMA. Are you out of your mind?
Right.
Yeah, they are.
Yeah.
But it's just, good luck to you. I don't hate on it.
And I also feel like for Jake, like when you look at that early footage, like he wanted to be an MMA fighter more than a boxer.
Correct.
And obviously it's a harder sport to realize long-term success in, right? I mean, certainly you can argue, especially with respect for women, right? Like if you want to become a professional athlete, like mixed martial arts is probably the sport. Like you can get on a path where you can't necessarily get on that path to get to the WNBA as easily.
Tough gig.
But
I think, it's interesting. I think too, what really opened my eyes, and this is just insane. This is just a story about Logan Paul. So I worked the Logan Paul Floyd Mayweather fight. I was the expert on Logan Paul, right?
That's right.
And so I'd go into his locker room, and I've known Logan a while now. In my head, I'm like, I'm gonna go back. This is gonna be a shit show. I wish I was in Floyd's locker room. It's gonna be way more calmer.
Right.
I go into, they're like, all right, you're up. And I go into Logan Paul's locker room. I'm like trying to hype myself. I'm like, just be calm, talk him down if he's freaking out. I go back there. They're playing like weird, like yogi music. There's like incense. And you would have thought they were doing, a hot yoga session.
Really?
It was the calmest locker room I've ever seen.
Wow.
And I go up to him. He's not nervous at all. He's like laughing with his friends and stuff, and they're wrapping his hands. And I was like, you don't seem nervous at all. He's like, no, I've already won. He's like, dude, I'm a YouTuber. And as he's wrapping his hands, he goes, I'm a YouTuber, dude. He goes, I'm 30 minutes away from fighting Floyd Mayweather. He goes, you know how stupid this is? And I was like, oh my God. His dad's freaking out though.
Right.
And so I go up to his dad and he's like, man, what do you think? And I go, Pops, listen, your son's way bigger than him.
Right.
Worst thing that's gonna happen is Floyd hits him with a body shot, he goes down.
Yeah.
Trust me, he's gonna be fine. He's too big for him. And he goes, you think he's gonna win? I go, it's not get crazy, but he's not gonna get like taken out on a stretcher.
Right.
Floyd's small. And I saw Floyd hitting mitts. And he had like this gray beard, he's hitting mitts, and I was like, oh, he looks, that's because I've worked with Floyd before. I'm like, oh, he looks his age. I was like, Logan might be able to do something. He's not going to beat him, but he might be able to win some rounds, But just seeing that, I'm like, these guys are on a different level, dude. Just a different planet.
In terms of your nerves before big-time college football games versus fights?
Not even close.
So nothing for the football game? Like just resting heart rate?
Nervous, and I was thinking about, because, those were the days, you're playing the Texas, when they're the powerhouses, when they had, what's his freaking name? Vince Young. Yeah, the Vince Young, Bo Scaife. And then
Bo Scaife,
amazing tight end, playing Oklahoma against Jason White, Heisman Trophy winner at that time. Adrian Peterson, Heisman Trophy winner at that time. But then their defense is Derek Johnson. So I would have to go against certain guys. So I was nervous about the single guy and performing what I was supposed to do on certain plays. But nothing like the UFC.
Right.
Listen, great sport, love to watch it. Worst gig in the world, dude. Worst fucking gig in the dude. I was terrified. And I listen, I'm very open about it. People are like, oh, pussy, cool. I'm telling you, I've been back there. The toughest people that you guys love. I've seen them shitting their pants.
Oh, yeah.
I've seen world champions, their coaches be like, "You're going out there,"
Yeah,
and they're like,
yeah.
"Nope, I'm not doing it tonight." He's like, "You're going out there crying."
Yeah.
So I wasn't that bad.
Right.
I'm just not that big of a bitch. I can admit it. I'm like, yeah, this is a tough gig, man. Also, ignorance is bliss. Those guys are like, hell yeah, another day in the office. I'm like, oh, you're stupid.
But you kept going back to the well.
Didn't have options.
Yeah.
As soon as I saw that crack open for podcasts and comedy, I was like, see ya.
And it is interesting for a lot of football players because the dream can end quickly, man. Like all of a sudden you don't make the NFL and it's just hard to like build yourself back up. And that can be a tough transition. Like John Vellante thought without a shadow of a fucking doubt that he was going to be in the NFL.
Oh, me too. I thought it was gonna be Tony Gonzalez. Yeah, and then you got the.
I wish you kinda
Then
had
I
it.
get me too. Yeah, then I got to the Buffalo Bills. They're like, excuse me, no, we're all set on slow white guys. I was like, oh yeah, that makes sense. I'm gonna get my shit and go. Like, yeah, thank you. Oh, you've worked 20 years, it's been your dream
Yeah.
since you were a kid. I'm like,
Yeah.
yeah, like we don't give a shit. Here's a hat. I'm like, thank you.
Yeah.
It's heartbreaking, dude.
Man.
Heartbreaking.
That's interesting to
Pro
hear
sports.
you recollect, yeah.
Yeah. But
So,
yeah.
do you root for the Bills because of that experience or no?
I feel like it's kind of cheesy to root for them because I played as many games for the Bills as you did. But I did go to camp with them, you
Yeah.
know. But
They invited you to camp.
they did, and at one point they were selling my jersey, which is interesting. But
That's cool. I
Yeah.
mean, I would rock. I'm a Patriots fan. I would wear a fucking Schaub.
yeah, for sure, give me royalties on that. But and it was way after the fact. This is like 5 years ago. But yeah, I root. There's something weird. I root for him. Yeah, obviously I don't hold any
right,
resentment
yeah,
against him.
right.
Yeah, no, I get it. But before you go, dude. So for every guest, I'm a sneakerhead. You know this.
I
You
know
were the
this.
Rodriguez because of that. So my boys at Suplex in Philly, East Coast
Yes.
crew. I always they supply all the shoes for the guys, and I always pick out a shoe. That's why I asked you your shoe size. And they're like, oh, should we send this to him? I'm like, no, dude, you're talking about a legend. We got to give him a legendary shoe. So to me, this is the best silhouette of all time.
Bro.
It's a legend shoe for a legend.
Dude.
These are for you, my man.
Thank you, my brother.
Yes.
I'm so
Well,
excited.
See what they are first if you like them.
I mean,
Say
I'd be
thanks.
lying if I said I flew out here just for the shoes.
But it's kind of, yeah. Yeah,
That's
I mean,
my
how
brother's
could you
gonna
not?
wanna steal, dude.
Yeah, and I didn't want to do too
Mint.
flashy. I don't want to do like.
Oh, and the pink laces are going in, bro.
Yeah, you got to do pink laces.
Dude.
See, I was gonna put those in, Daddy.
Thank you, bro.
And see what they said
I mean, these
here.
are right up my alley. And when you see me
They're not too.
emceeing,
They're not too crazy. So you could wear them that fit. You're gonna look fly as shit.
when you see me emceeing the weigh-in in Rio
You're
de
gonna rock
Janeiro,
those?
I'll be wearing.
And we're gonna
these.
post a picture,
Team
like-
fucking Schaub, man.
So this says, Mr. Anik, first and foremost, huge fans here at Suplex Sneakers. Please wear and enjoy these Jordan 1s. We had to lace the GOAT with some sneakers. They called you the GOAT. For some sneaks from the GOAT. If you're ever in Philly, stop by and see us on South Street, Suplex. Thank you.
Unbelievable. Thank you,
boys.
Suplex. Thank you, guys. I'm going to come see you in Philadelphia, man. Thank you for having me out. I know we've been
It's
trying
been
to do
a
this
hot
for
second,
a
dude.
long
You're the
time.
busiest man in sports, so, you know, we finally got it done. I love you,
appreciate
man.
it,
Keep
I
crushing
love you
it.
too.
Keep
Thank
doing
you, buddy.
the
Thanks
Lord's
for
work.
having me, and you do the same, man. Keep the empire
I'm
going.
trying.
We're proud of you.
I'm
We're proud of you.
exhausted. I'm exhausted. John Anik, everybody.